Hello, welcome to the More Than Graphics podcast. I'm Danielle.
And I am Priscilla.
So we got some really okay. First off, let me just revamp this because I am super excited. One, because it's just me and Priscilla today, and usually it's not just me and Priscilla. So I love the fact that it is the two of us, even though I miss you, Cicely, and I love you so much. But I'm really excited that we are going to keep going, and this is the reason why we wanted to have a bonus co-host because we want to keep that conversation going, and we can keep it going amongst women of color. Hey. So I'm super excited about what this conversation is going to lead into. But today's topic is fearless. Okay, so the tone already went down. Like, what are we getting ready to say? What's about to be done? Fearless can take on many different tones, shapes, forms, voices, if we will. And I kind of just wanted to bring up some really cool, like, quick tidbits with you, Priscilla, just to kind of catch up with life and how things are in and around this place of fearless right now. So, according to a June article written by Joseph Manson in the Society for Personalities and Social Psychology, he addresses why women are more fearful than men. And his comment was very interesting to me. He specifically stated that given the worldwide prevalence of fear and anxiety related psychological disorders such as generalized anxiety disorder and panic disorder, and their higher frequency in women than in men, this is an important question that might point the way toward an effective, relatively inexpensive intervention. His whole article pointed politely to suggest some sort of strength training that would like help us overall be our best, strongest self. Thought that was very contrary to the real life that women actually live and actually do, especially us as mothers. I think that is someone who needs to seriously sit in the back seat with a mom in the car and kind of readdress that. But to counter that, Daily Journal reports that 10 things women are afraid of but shouldn't be. This list is cool. Claiming their success, fighting everyday sexism, standing up for themselves, following their dreams, speaking up, looking the way we want to, traveling alone, that's a big one, and being judged. I feel like all those areas are so impactful, but and very true to the day-to-day life that we as women in tech and women creatives, we live into those type of I don't want to say stigmas or labels or boxes, but we live into those areas quite a bit. What are your thoughts on that, Priscilla?
That's a lot to take in. I'm like, it's Monday. Right now it's Monday. The thing that I was thinking about, first thing I thought about when you're going over this list is thinking of not just women, but I've got a 10-year-old daughter, and some of this stuff I think of it now, and how will it relate to her when she gets older, and that's kind of what I'm going through now, as a single mom with a 10-year-old 10-year-old girl in today's world, right? And how will we work on that stuff, what wisdoms and life lessons can I help her, give her the tools for a lot of this stuff. Some of this, I mean, the standing up for herself and being judged is really big. Like, I mean, she's in fourth grade.
Yeah, I completely relate to this. And some of those feelings that we experience in our childhood, they never really leave us, into our adult lives. And so it almost kind of acts as a conductive, if you will, mechanism for behaviors, as we go into our adulthood, into relationships, into things along those lines. So I can only relate from my perspective, growing up in a very small town in Kentucky that was predominantly white. It was one of those situations where if you were the outsider, you were very much looked at like what's going on, or who are you, or why are you here?
Yeah.
And so I kind of grew up in that kind of stigma that it was okay for me, it's okay to stick out. But for a lot of people, the need to blend in is so deeply rooted in a sense of identity and purpose.
Right.
And neither avenues are wrong. It's just a matter of what works best for the individual, for the woman, for the girl.
For sure.
Yeah. Deep thoughts topics, right? Take a deep breath.
Let's get started
Woo!
on Fearless. Segue.
Yes, which kind of segues into as we talk about fear in the space for women. I am super excited to kind of talk to someone who's actually definitely got an uphill battle. I feel like in elements of fear or inferiority about this very controversial ish topic. I feel like it's more mainstream now, but I feel like in a lot of areas for women, depending on where you are in the world, this is very taboo subject. So I like the fact that I am bringing Aisha into this conversation, and I'm happy to introduce her. Or Priscilla, would you like to try?
I think I'm getting a slow signal. Kind of keeps coming in and out. So why don't you?
Okay. Gotcha. All right. So this is Aisha Jenkins. Aisha Jenkins is a single mother by choice, used a doctor and sperm bank to conceive her two children, a tech professional, business owner, and host of the Start to Finish Motherhood podcast. The Start to Finish Motherhood podcast focuses on all things single mother by choice and is geared towards supporting women on their single mother by choice journey from start to finish. Aisha is a trusted leader in the single mother by choice community, having been a member for over a decade and has administered and moderated two Facebook communities of close to 20K people. Wow. Before deciding to start her own company in 2022. Her journey to become a single mother by choice, navigating fertility clinics, sperm banks, friends, and family, and courage to share both the joys and the pain have continued to enrich the community at large and support many in achieving their dreams of motherhood. Welcome to the show, Aisha.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here.
Oh my goodness, there's so much to unpack here because this topic, right, of adding when we talk about growing families, that's such an organic way to talk about this because it is definitely not the traditional
No, no,
not a
not the
traditional way.
traditional.
Yeah. So tell me more about how you came to this idea. Like, this is what I want and this is how I want to do it.
So I started out as a rules girl. So if you've ever read that book, there's a certain way to date, dating for marriage, and I think I ascribe to a lot of respectability politics growing up, right? So yeah, my route to this path is kind of windy, and I go back to the beginning, right? So I grew up as a child in East New York, Brooklyn, and at the time and the height of the crack epidemic, right? And so I was deeply impacted. I lost both my parents to drug related outcomes. At 13 I lost my dad. At 16 I lost my mom. And so kind of dealing with that trauma and being a rules person, I like boundaries as just a normal everyday person. When I became an adult and was thrown out into the world, I knew that, I wanted stability. I wanted to get married. I wanted to do everything the right way because I had dealt with a lot of trauma around me. So I wanted peace. I wanted settled. And when, I did what most people do, you go to college, you meet your husband. So I dated my ex-husband from the time I got to college. That first semester, I was in love, and so we graduated college, we got married, and then we hit that stumbling block with new marriages, right? So I didn't have a really strong role model for what a good marriage looked like, and neither did he. But we were both trying to navigate it together. We were trying to navigate careers, we were trying to discuss having children. And I think that's where we hit our first stumbling block because we both had different ideas of what it meant to have children and who would be primary caregiver for the child and how that would all work out. And now in respect of my ex-husband, there weren't a lot of surprises for me in terms of what his expectations were. I think the surprises for me came about how I evolved as a woman and the things that I knew I wanted. Like he wanted total control. He wanted a stay-at-home wife. He wanted to dictate all of how the children were going to be reared. And, me being green, I was just like, yes. I had some, friends in my corner that would like, just say yes. So I just said yes. And then I got myself into a corner where I loved this person, but I was also developing as a professional, as a woman, and the things that I wanted did not line up. And once I got into a career that I really enjoyed, that was where I had to make that. I was at that fork in the road. Do I continue and give up everything and be a stay at home mom? Or do I risk not having kids and decide to go solo? So I ended up divorced. And that's how I ended up on this path of non traditional. So keep going.
Oh, I love this. Yes, I love it. Oh my goodness.
So I dated, still with the tradition in mind that, okay, that didn't work out, but I'll find somebody, a man who is evolved a bit more and, we could have kids together. But it's the same. I think, we're products of the patriarchy, right? Whether we like it or not, there's a narrative and that's the norm and that's what you do. And you have the most security within that situation. And it just didn't work out for me. And so I struggled for a few years I got divorced at 29, got married at 24, divorced at 29. And then I dated for maybe 3 or 4 years. So I wasn't rebounding from divorce. And so at about 33, I started having these conversations about wanting to start a family and really, getting into my cups and tears and crying because I was dating and the dating options weren't good. Looking back, like, did I make the right choice leaving, the husband, the house, the picket fence, for this unknown path? And so I had started Google searching and I was like, how to get pregnant on your own. I was looking for sperm banks. I was looking for stuff, but I didn't know the names, the titles, what these things were called. Eventually, I stumbled upon Baby Center and I stumbled upon this group for single people who were having kids on their own. And so I started asking questions. And so that was about 33. So I got bits and pieces of the information I needed, but I still wasn't ready. I was still searching for a relationship and still doing my single girl, hot girl summer stuff, right? So I gave myself until about 35 that if I didn't find a partner, I would start pursuing motherhood on my own. I knew at that point that it was called a single mother by choice. I knew at that point I should be looking for a reproductive endocrinologist, which is a doctor that will do all of the fertility testing, do IVF, IUI, and help get you pregnant. I knew that sperm banks were called cryobanks, which was a big help. So I was able to start looking at cryobanks and profiles and things like that. And then I took one more summer. And when you're at that crossroads of doing the non-traditional, you do second guess yourself. And so this is kind of where the fear comes in. And this is the second time in my life, do I push past the fear and go into the unknown? And so I was not quite ready. So I asked friends, male friends, like, hey, would you donate sperm to me? And these were men that I respected, who respected me and possibly wanted to have a relationship with me and then have kids. And so when I started having deeper conversations and the men were getting excited about, I get to be a part, I get to raise, and I'm just like, you get to do nothing. It's my child. And so rather than continue down that path, I knew that the sperm bank option was the best option for me because people get excited when they don't have kids and this is their opportunity. And I'm just like, this is not your opportunity, it's mine. And so now I'm on this path. So I picked a sperm donor, I paid money, and I go back and I think about making those first calls to the clinic, the reproductive endocrinologist, and I probably started making the call 4 or 5 times, and I would call and hang up. It's like being in high school, like, this is a boy that I like, but it's something I really wanted to do. But I was nervous because I didn't know anybody who had done it, not in the real world. In virtual space, yes. So finally, I got up the courage and I called and I made the first appointment. And then I sat down with the endocrinologist and he explained everything to me. And I did intrauterine insemination. So this was something that we don't really know about as an option, right? Because media tells us it's IVF. You go through, you get all these shots, and then you get embryos, and then you have your babies. But there is a few different options on that spectrum. So when I started out, I was 37 and still like on the back end of fertility, but still a good chance. So we tried IUI, which is intrauterine insemination. And it's basically like, this is your uterus. The doctor just waits for the perfect time of the month and just throws sperm up there. You cross your fingers and you hope it works. So it did not work the first time, but it did work the second time. And I had a textbook pregnancy with my first daughter. She's 8 now. And then I tried again when my daughter turned 1, because I thought, hey, it worked the first time, it should work the second time. And it ended up being a 3-year journey. And I ended up having to use donor egg because I had run out of time and I had gotten older over those 3 years. So 39, 40, 41, 42 to 42. And so a lot of fertility clinics will stop working with a woman using her own eggs right about 43, 42, 43. So I was on the cusp. I was also financing all of this by myself out of pocket. My insurance didn't cover anything. And so money was an issue. And so I decided that I wanted the best chance of success. And so I went with donor egg. Turns out now, hindsight being 2020, the issue was actually the sperm that I was using that was causing me to have miscarriages and not being successful. And so once I got down to, again, facing the fear of what it was that I wanted that really mattered to me, and regardless of what all the male doctors were telling me, they were telling me, it's your eggs. It's you, woman. It's you, woman. It's your eggs. No one thought it was the sperm. And so when I got down to my last money, and it came down to either me trusting my gut or trusting the patriarchy, I went with my gut. I changed sperm donors. I went with an egg donor, and everything had to be the same blood type because it was a blood type mismatch. And I could go into that if you want me to, but it was a blood type mismatch. And so when it came down to me betting on myself, I went there 100%. I got sperm that was my blood type. I got donor eggs that was my blood type, and I got my baby. And so that's my second daughter, who will be 4 in June.
Oh my gosh, this is so mesmerizing to me. Like, I love this. There were so many powerful statements that you mentioned in this entire talk so far. I mean, I just want to really, I love this. It's not your opportunity, it's mine. Like Priscilla wrote that one. We're taking notes behind here. So we do a lot of note taking. We do a lot of coming back when we share this episode. It's really about the words, the impact of your words. So I love the fact that you mentioned that this is not your opportunity. It's my,
Right.
I claim this.
Yes.
I love the power in that phrase. I think a lot of women will take away a lot of things from this conversation and how to seize their own opportunity to say, you know what, nope, it's not yours. It's mine.
Right. Yep.
Whatever that may be. And I really love your story. I love the fact that you did not give up on yourself, that you leaned on your gut versus the patriarchy. Can we just get a whole amen for that one? I absolutely love that. You right, Priscilla was like,
Right.
wait,
Yeah.
perfectly. This is it.
It couldn't have possibly been the sperm. Those little swimmers just swim. And it's just like, those little swimmers didn't work for me. Right. And it's just like,
find me another one. Right. Exactly.
but you know what's funny? It's like, when people say when you go to school and you have math and science that you never use, right? I was a biology major. And so one of my favorite topics was human genetics. And so when things weren't working, I was like, what are we not looking at? And so I had to put my scientific cap on, and I was like, okay, because I did with my first pregnancy, I did have an immune event. Like my body did attack my daughter. And this is documented, right? So it's not hokey pokiness that I'm making up in my head. Now, had any of those doctors, which they claim to like look at your medical records, nobody did that. And with with my last $21,000 mistake, I talked to the RE and I said, look at this. Is this a possibility? Oh, no, no, we're just going to run our protocols. So again, the silencing, the dismissing. And so I both at the time, so I tried. First, I wanted to get a full genetic sibling for my daughter. So I stayed with my eggs and the sperm. And I tried that over and over with a couple of IVF cycles. The last one was the $21,000 mistake. And I was just like, hey, could it be this? And he was like, no. And so, okay, so that was like $21,000 down the drain. And I just watched it go. And so then the next time I tried, I did donor egg. And in the fertility community, donor eggs are golden, right? Because they're young. The donors are typically 22, 26, 27 age range. They're good, producers. And I hate to say that, but, they produce, a high number of eggs. So that is like the gold standard. It should work. And so when it didn't work, I changed clinics, I changed protocols, I moved to egg donor, and I kept the same sperm, and it did not work. I kept miscarrying. And so I was just like, when I got down to the last of it, I was like, what haven't I done? And I kept asking, should I change sperm donors? No, you were successful with this donor. And part of me wanted a full genetic sibling or a half sibling. Now, at the point where I was done emotionally, money-wise, or what have you, I was like, look, if I'm not going to win, if I'm going to be six figures in debt trying, we're going to pick type O eggs, type O sperm to match my type O body. And if I am correct, this will work. I was the third recipient. Now, each recipient, when you get donor eggs, you get 6 eggs. I was the third recipient, so I got whatever was left. I got 2 eggs. And so they asked me at the clinic, do I want to wait for the other 4, or do we just want to roll the dice and fertilize these? I said, roll the dice. Let's see what we get. I got 2 embryos. One made it to day 3, and I transferred her. And she's here. It wasn't the easiest pregnancy, but I can tell you, when I hit rough patches, I said 26-year-old sperm, 24-year-old eggs. This should work. And, after having so many miscarriages, I was an anxious pregnant woman. And so it was just, I needed all of the reassurances and all the way up until I delivered her, there was a chance that I wasn't going to deliver a live baby, because she had she was measuring small. And so at my 34-week ultrasound, they were talking about microcephaly, which is the condition that Zika babies were going to have. Yes. And I went through a range of emotions in 6 hours because I had to pick up my daughter from daycare. I'm the single parent. I still needed to function as a mom. And so I cried, I raged, I thought about all the options. And eventually I arrived at, this is my baby. I'm going to love her regardless. And I made it at that point to enjoy the rest of my pregnancy. So the doctors told me we wouldn't know anything until she delivered. So this was from 34 weeks to 39 and a half weeks. I wasn't going to know, and I wasn't going to let my joy be stolen. And so I did what I needed to do. I was on a gestational diabetes diet. They were watching me. So that meant I could not eat certain foods. I had to exercise. But with her measuring small, I then had to conserve calories. So I could no longer exercise. I needed to eat a lot of food I did not like. And I had to add protein shakes that were low in sugar. For the last part of my pregnancy, I was a miserable woman, still having to parent and still not knowing. I told my medical team, I was like, look, I cannot go home without a live baby. I cannot explain to my 4-year-old that there's not a baby coming home. So y'all need to make it right. And, it's totally outside of the realm of whatever. But I was just like, I'm on the edge here. Right. Y'all need to see me through. Right. And so, and they did. She was perfectly fine. She was born 5 pounds, 12 ounces. She came home with me, and she is now running the whole house. But it's amazing how it transformed me, right? Without going through her pregnancy, I wouldn't have been able to start to finish motherhood. I would not have been able to pour into the single mother by choice communities, right? Because I didn't have just one easy path, right? I did IUI, I did the easy thing. And then I went the entire spectrum all the way to donor egg. And then, even then, it wasn't a guarantee that it was going to work. I still had to pray her through
Mhm.
delivery and see what I got. And ultimately, I was going to love that child.
Oh my
So,
goodness. Wow, so many feels.
Oh my
Priscilla
gosh.
jump in
Yes,
here.
I think I notes. I use pencil for a reason because when you scratch things out and stuff and you put pens, it feels so like it. But I was writing down the words that kind of came to me, when you were speaking is, well, yeah, we're talking about fearlessness, but the words were like, we have to be, in order to be fearless. This is the lessness always confuses me, but we know what we're talking about. But, it's like, you have the curiosity and, it's all like trusting your gut, following your heart, keeping your joy, but mostly it's like advocating for yourself. I have like
Mhm.
a friend, my best friend, she's a ovarian cancer survivor. And she always said, advocate for yourself. Because, like you were saying, all the doctors, are, no, it's good, yeah. But, you keep going. And it's like because you know what you want your end goal to be,
yeah.
and then you saying that about the, you know, you're being transformed and stuff. I mean, it was just, yeah, thank you. But I had a question I wanted to ask you, because I was writing down all this stuff, but you're talking a lot about paths, right? Non-traditional and unknown, and I'm wondering, what would you call your path now?
I'm still trying to find out. I'm on this adventure, right? And I think so. I'm a woman of faith, and God has never let me down. And what has worked for me always is doing what I can to prepare myself for whatever that next step is. And so when God seems to open up a door, I just walk right through it. Right. And so I'm just ready for whatever exceptional adventures still lie ahead for me. And, and it's one of the things I'm trying to raise my girls with, that sense of adventure. It's just like, you don't know, but there are some laws of science, some laws of life that you can count on. Yes,
Mhm.
that you can count on. And it's just like, okay, so you can prepare, to some extent, but the rest is just, your willingness to trust God or the universe, and it's just like, I don't know. I know what's on that path. I don't really know what's on that path, but it can't be that bad, right? If I'm walking
Right.
in my authenticity, if I'm walking in my purpose, and if I'm walking on faith, it's like, can't be that bad. Like, now a lot of this goes back to, I grew up without a safety net. And so when you don't have a safety net, that trust has to come from someplace, right? And so to some extent, you have to trust people. You have to trust yourself a lot. And so I'm not saying that to take any of what I've done lightly, right? Because there was a lot of trust, there's a lot of prep and planning, and being quiet and kind of, and getting in touch with yourself. What do you really want? Like, I'm about to walk away from a marriage of someone I loved and have been with for 11 years. I don't know what's out there for me, but I know that I love this person enough to let him go and get the life he wants, right? And free him up that way. And so then I need to pick up my hammer and my axe, and I need to carve out a path that's going to work for me. But it's a lot of self conversations, like I work in tech, right? And so tech is notorious for telling you things that are not actually true. And right. And so you have to be firm in who you are, what your purpose is, and what you're doing here at any point in time. What am I doing here? And so I really try to act as a woman of faith, and I try to act with integrity, because I don't know who's watching. God is always watching, and I want to be right with God. I don't care about everybody else. I want to be right with God, because it's all I know. That is my safety net. I'm going to prepare, I'm going to plan, and then I'm going to walk on faith. And so
I
yeah.
love this. I love this so much. And I think the bigger thing that we're saying here, obviously, not specifically, it's not specific to a faith, but just literally believing in something bigger than yourself.
Yeah.
And I think that is such a guiding light for so many of us who are in a place where they're still trying to move past whatever fear is holding them back.
Hmm.
And I love so much how you have been able to use your faith value system and your faith to get past or hurdle over your own fear, whether that was being trapped in the system of the patriarchy or being able to step out and bring these children to life. You literally manifested so many things in your life just by speaking them and holding yourself accountable to them. And I
Yeah.
think that is such an amazing, amazing display of what we as women in tech and women in the creative field can do when we truly believe in ourselves and stick to our purpose. Um,
Thank you.
yeah, I think that's beautiful. I had a question about how you were able to like self care in all of this. Was there certain things that you did? Was there certain techniques that you used? I mean, I'm sure those 34 weeks to 39 and a half weeks were pretty high tense, but was there
Uh-huh.
any type of special routine that you used just consistently?
Not necessarily. So I try to connect with myself and try to, ask what do I need in these moments? And it's the big moments, right? I needed to call on some people. So I do have a trusted, group of people that I can call on, that I can connect with. And whether they've been in my corner for decades or they've been in my corner like 30 minutes ago, right? So I avail myself to humanity. And, like if you're on a bus and sometimes somebody would be like, oh, those shoes are cute. And you're just like, yeah, thank you. Your outfit is cute too. And you connect with them in that moment. So since I don't have parents or that necessarily family structure, I do have siblings. I rely on the kindness of people when I can't get to my people. So when I told my doctors, look, y'all need to handle this, I meant it in that moment, in that doctor's appointment, from, getting me through that pregnancy. Like we're partnering in this to whatever extent you can partner and get me through this appointment. I need you to do that. Right. And so I think, so I have people, but then it's just like, beyond that, I journal. I do talk therapy. Before I had kids, it was the usual, the manicures, the pedicures. After kids, don't touch me. Right. So now it's my garden, it's being outdoors, it's, talking to friends over Zoom. I used to be a phone person. Now I'm a texter, so catch you when I catch you, this asynchronous, friendships, they work for me now. So when you mentioned Clubhouse, I was like, I could totally do that. It's just like I could wash dishes and multitask and just talk. But it's a lot of just kind of knowing who I am and what I need in those moments. If it's sleep, I go to sleep when I put the kids to bed. Like if I'm so exhausted, I'm still putting a 3-year-old to bed, I fall asleep in her bed and I just go with it because it is what my body needs at that moment. And so yeah, I get outdoors. I have a garden. Yeah, project manage my entire garden, and it's a beautiful thing. I'll send you pictures. I'm very proud of it.
I would love to see it. I would love to see it.
I
I
Oh my
love
will.
goodness.
pictures.
I love all these little moments.
Yeah,
Like, okay, so Priscilla, y'all can totally vibe on the whole like falling
I
asleep
know.
in the kids' bed thing. Like,
Photo, quick, quick, quick.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, earlier you made a statement that stood out to me when you said, I just said yes. Do you remember when you said that? And,
Oh, uh-huh.
I mean, and that really stood out for me. And like, that's that listening to your gut, right? So like, do you have anything that's kind of been big on you lately that you're just, I mean, have you ever said like when you're just saying yes, do you ever, it says yes and then you're like, but no. I guess I'm just like, and
So
you say yes, your feeling says yes. Do you always follow that yes?
no,
No. How do
no.
you how do you determine, or I guess it depends on what the
It depends, right? Even when I was married, right, there was that disconnect between my head and my heart. My
Yeah.
heart said, "You love this man, tell him yes." My head was just like, but you're career oriented, you're in school, and it's just like, so in that case my heart went out, but ultimately my brain, I ended up doing what was really on my heart. And so it's not like my life is not a straight line. Like there are times where, because I want to trust in people, and I can totally have an offline conversation because I'm recently coming out of something. But you want to trust that adults know who they are and what they want, and you can sometimes get it wrong. And I do, but I always, again, that whole integrity piece. Once I realized that I've made a misstep, I need to go back and repair whatever I can. And that in of itself helps with the healing process, because it's another opportunity for me to take a step back and be empathetic, right? Because you don't always, like, you don't always understand what other people are going through until you've gone through it. And then how do you evolve from that, right? So if I make a mistake or a misstep, if I can at all go back and correct it, then I do that thing, right? Because then it gives me more empathy, and it allows me to grow, and it allows me to be softer. Because sometimes when you have in your mind that there's this right way to do things, and it's hard decisions, you're straightforward, you sometimes miss the humanity and the need that's on the fringes. And I think, anything that I can do to kind of soften that view just a little bit, because I got kids, right? They're not going to be me. They're going to be whoever they're going to be. And I'm going to need that softness. I'm going to need all the tools that I can get when the stakes are low and the costs are low. But for them going into their teen years, the stakes are going to become higher and higher. I want to be that go-to soft place for them. And I can't get there without kind of going about and getting those soft parts of me, right? If that makes any sense, I have to kind of go through to get to the other side to be what they need me to be. So as long as life keeps giving and people keep being people, right? I always have opportunities to be a better person and a better parent for those two little people. And so God and those little girls are my top priorities. Yeah, and I want to be right with all four of us, right? So yes, I don't always get it right. I say yes sometimes when I should say no, right? And I think that that's all a part of that adventure into the unknown.
Oh, I love this so much. I can completely attest that I've said yes probably too many times.
Yes.
And helping to spearhead young little growing people. I love the fact that you're being very transparent. I really appreciate that. And
Mhm.
you really just being honest, one, about the way that you see the world, the way you want to raise your kids, and two, how that encompasses all the face values that help build the foundation for where you want to grow from. And I think that's so inspirational, just because there's so many of us that may or may not have those foundations in a place to
Mhm.
sustain themselves. They see it, they hear it, they see it on, the glamorous TLC, living lifestyle shows, or they catch
Mhm.
it on cable network, or there's some cool, lifestyle show on Netflix. They're like, oh, I want to be them, I want to do that. And I just think it's really interesting that this is a real life testimony and a real life situation where you have been able to take the bits and pieces that inspire and encourage you and use that to kind of create this little bridge or a tightrope, even to be able to walk across those platforms where it feels very scary or uncomfortable to you. And I think that's very transparent. But I also feel like this is a great model for so many other women that are in tech and women creatives to create their own little, form their own foundation, create their own
Yeah.
tightrope, and walk that line.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I just really hope that women out there in listening range, when you're listening to these stories, that you're taking the knowledge and you're using it to empower and encourage and educate yourself, because this is how it's done. This is how it's been done for generations before technology, before telephones, even. It was women sitting together conversationally in a room and sharing their stories. So, I'm just, yeah, I won't get choked up on that one. But,
Can we? Can we talk a little bit about what that looks like in the tech space? Because
Yes, that was actually my next question was
yes,
like,
all right. So Angie asked the question.
okay. So the actual question that I had was how do you actual question. How did your tech background help you be successful in your journey?
Okay, so that's a good question, and I think part of the transparency that needs to be had, right? Because I didn't just self finance becoming a single mother by choice. It took a lot of money. When I said I looked at $21,000 that walked away, and my second child is a 6-figure child. I meant that, right? And so the way that I have a love-hate relationship with tech and my company in particular, which, is a niche company, so I won't mention it. But it did allow me the financing, right? So I came from crack infested East New York, Brooklyn. My parents were deceased. I had nothing, right? But I also had none of the traditional barriers telling me that this is what you need to do. This is the path that you need to follow. So I was kind of flying like a free bird. It was just like whatever, path is open to me. So for that, if that is the lemonade to that lemon, right? Losing your parents. And so that landed me in a field where I was just like, I was a biology major. And then I was just like, that's not going to kind of get me anywhere because I need to be a professor. Don't want to do that. So then I went back to school. I was just like, I don't know, looked at the catalog, picked something, and I ended up in IT before it was popular, before it was, glamorous or what have you. So I've been with the same company for 20 years. I am in my 21st year. So it's my first job out of grad school. And it really financed everything that came after. I'm currently reading the book Hood Feminism. And it talks a lot about options. So being in tech at 26 gave me a lot of options that I didn't appreciate at the time. And one of those options is being able to choose my own path and finance becoming a single mother by choice. I'm in debt, don't get me wrong, but it did give me options, and I'm confident that the debt will get paid off. And so there's that. So I have a love-hate relationship with tech. And I will say I moved up the ranks and I dealt with a lot of the standard microaggressions that are out there, dealt with workplace trauma, currently working through with a therapist a lot of that workplace trauma. But I think that there were certain things that I did. There's a phrase in yoga that is called when you reach your edge. That means you've gone as far as your muscles can take you. The pandemic put me to the edge, right? I was smooth sailing. It was 2019. I was just coming back from maternity leave with my first child. She was an infant. I put her in daycare. That was October. December, she got RSV. So I was like, we're keeping her home. We're not doing a whole lot of gatherings. And then the pandemic hit. I actually believe my daughter was patient zero in my house. They couldn't tell me what it was. She ended up in the hospital in February. I thought it was RSV. Luckily, she was in the hospital. She was getting everything that she needed. She was fine. It went undiagnosed, but I think she was a patient zero because they were like, it's not flu, it's not RSV, it's whatever unknown, respiratory illness is out there. 2 weeks later, it's COVID. But so I was in a situation where I had a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old who was a kindergartner, and I had an 8-month-old, and I had to work from home with no village to support me, and I needed to keep my job and my insurance. I might have caused a lot of my HR people to go home and cry into their drinks. I was a mess, I will admit that, but I think coming out of that situation, I really found my voice because shortly after the pandemic shutdown was George Floyd. And so this is where I fully came into my element at work, and I had decided to bring my full self to work. That meant my entire voice. So I bled out at work. They knew what I was thinking. They knew what I was feeling. I advocated for parents who needed support during the pandemic. I advocated for Black people. Out of that, my a coworker and I, we founded a nonprofit that's called North Star that's geared toward increasing representation of Black people in the particular tech space that we're in. We found all the Black people in our company. We pulled them into a hug and we all got each other through the pandemic. We got each other through the George Floyd. We leaned on each other like it was nobody's business, right? And the technology in itself allowed us to do that, but also all being in tech, right? We kind of knew the struggle of being Black people in tech, and we knew that our collective voices were louder than an individual voice, and we really came together. And then that also got me advocating for single mothers by choice, right? And that got me to start to Finish Motherhood. So there was a lot of things that tech enabled me to do. Like I didn't have an uphill battle in understanding, virtual communication and understanding how to build virtual communities because I was a part of one. I was a leader in one. I didn't, there were a lot of hurdles that I did not have to overcome in order to get where I am. And so I thank tech for that. I do think that there is a role that that economics and capitalism in tech play in helping Black people, get from East New York, Brooklyn, crack with no family, growing up in the systems of New York City as a foster kid, to creating a pathway, and the pathway is paved with thorns, yes, right? But when I reached my 20th year of my career and I had nothing else to lose, really. Like you could take my job from me, but I'm struggling to stay alive in a pandemic, right? And so ultimately, I found my voice. And so now I take my full self to work. People don't have to wonder. I hold my leadership team accountable. Like, okay, the rules that you lay out for me are not the same rules you lay out for those white people. Y'all need to understand that it's not an Aisha issue. It's a y'all issue. And I'm going to let y'all handle that. But I'm going to be the face to tell you, you need training in how to manage Black women, but in particular, a diverse team. You actually need real training. America might be able to get away with not reckoning with their racist past, but I'm going to sit here and every week I'm going to remind you of the racist past of this company and the microaggressions that I've endured. And you're going to hear it, and everybody has heard it. And so I'm going to sit here and I am going to step out of leadership because it was a choice that I made. I reached the ceiling and okay, so I've reached the ceiling. That does not mean that my creativity stops. That does not mean that I stop being productive. It just means I stop being productive and creative for you. My intellectual property, I get to decide what I do with it in my off hours. I started a nonprofit. I started a business. I encourage women and partner with women to become single mothers by choice and live their best lives. And so that is what tech has enabled for me. It has financed all of this.
Wow. I'm about to throw a shoe. I'm like, I'm hyped. I'm about to go all the way in Nigeria on that one. I'm about to throw a shoe. I'm so excited. This inspires me so much. And it's incredibly charging for a woman of color to know that we are still taking up space, just not the way that space wants us to take up space.
Yeah.
And I think that's incredibly empowering when we talk about going into the workplace in the corporate America. We talk about going into these spaces, even for small businesses that are coming from rural areas that don't have the diversity intake, that don't have the diversity background. It's incredibly empowering to know that we are out here. Okay, that's the phrase. We out here
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I think it's really important that we do this work. Not they do this work necessarily, but we have to also do the work for ourselves.
Yes.
And I love the fact that Cicely was here. That's her phrase. We do this work on self. That's what
Yeah.
it comes down to. And that is kind of the spark that enables or starts a pattern for other people to start doing their work on self.
Yeah.
And I just think it becomes this beautiful domino effect that you've been able to, okay, I recognize that that's that space, but I'm different now because I've
Mm-hmm.
experienced in things. I think, especially during some of the heightened moments of Black Lives Matter, during the heightened moments of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Philandro Castile, when we talk about these moments where we had to emotionally get through the space if I can't breathe and literally physically go breathe into a space that continues to pour an element of toxicity into our lives. We have to do our part and do that work on self that you have completely showcased. Y'all, hope y'all taking notes because this was crazy amazing. I absolutely love this. I know Priscilla's writing very feverishly. Like this is so good. But I love the fact that you have stood up and said no more. There's a lot of women who are not yet at that place, but maybe they feel empowered just from hearing your story that they can.
I hope
And I
so.
also love the fact too that you are continually being that face for women and face for people in tech, face for people of color in tech. And understanding too that there is a balance. There's a difference between talking to your white employees and there's a difference between talking to us.
Yeah.
I really applaud that. That was beautiful. Aisha, thank you.
No, thank you both. There's, we're all women of color, and when society tells you like here are the rules, when the workplace tells you here are the rules, and it's just like, but who are those rules actually for? Are they to control me? And I think part of the empowerment is it's the first time you use your voice and you realize that, oh, I'm not going to get fired, right? The first time you
Mhm.
use your voice, because there are particular times where you're strategic in how you use that voice, right? And so for me, it's risky. It's very risky. I'm a single parent. I can't afford to lose my job, right? But this kind of feels bigger than that. And it's just like, okay, so I'm going to operate out in the open. That's why
Mhm.
all of HR, my entire HR team knows my story. Manager I've had knows my story because there needs to be change, right? And we need to be the company on the inside that we are on the outside, right? Or we want people to believe that we are on the outside. But I think that there's power when you use your voice for that first time and you're just like, wait, like the world didn't come to an end. I didn't lose my job, because you do it in a respectful way. I mean, when you're
Mhm.
a professional, you use whatever tools you have, right? And that's not to say, I think there's a time and a place for every voice. My voice in this particular space is to say, look, this is my year in review. This is my performance review. Let me
Yeah.
tell you a few things, since this is supposed to be a conversation in a safe space, right? And it's within the confines of that safe space that I'm going to let you know some things that I've observed and experienced. And you do with that what you want. Right. But I think that there's power when you use your voice and you use your options for that first time. And then you realize, like, oh, I can do that. Look at me,
Mhm.
right? And so, if I could just walk side by side, with some people who do have those very real fears, and I'm not fearless. Like every day, it's just like, I know what's on the line for me. I know what's on the line when I tell people you can go ahead and have a baby on your own. I know the trolls might come for me, right?
Right.
There are things that I know that exist, like Black women are a lot of people's punching bags, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes easy targets, right? But I think that it's important that people realize that they do have choices and they do have options, and it's just whether or not you exercise those options and make an informed decision. And so know when the rules don't apply and when to step off the path. And raising girls, Priscilla is raising a girl too, and it's just like, society tells us so often that here are the rules, here's the box you have to live in. And when you're raising them and they're small, you need to teach them rules, but then there's a time where you teach them certain rules need to be broken, right?
Mhm.
Or you need to carve out this own path. And I'm not exactly sure what age that is because I haven't reached it yet, but there's a conversation I know that's coming for both of my girls to say, okay, these rules are meant to keep you in a box, right? And then there's a time to not follow those rules, right? And
Mm.
so, yes, I'm gonna be 70 walking beside, you know, carrying a warrior spear for my my children. Like, yes, we go to battle. Um,
Where's my
so,
Wakanda picture? Where is it? I got it.
you know, yes, yes, yes. So it's a lot. It's a lot.
Oh my gosh, there were so many things. So you just like literally certain rules are meant to be broken. Ah! Um, okay. So how can people find you? Connect with you?
Well, you can find me at Start to Finish Motherhood on Instagram. You can also, I've got a YouTube channel, Start to Finish Motherhood. So I have a podcast called Start to Finish Motherhood with Aisha, and we are releasing episodes weekly on Wednesdays. So check them out.
Oh my goodness.
I have a website
Yes.
also.
I'm reading it
So I
right
do
now.
consulting. And so I partner with women every step of their single mother by choice journey. And so we typically get people who struggle with finding a sperm donor. Like there's a lack of black sperm, right?
Yeah.
So how do I make a sperm choice when I want, black children, or I want, Asian children, or I want children that represents my ethnic group? How do I go about doing that? And so so I partner with people every step of their journey, and it's fun.
I love this. I hope you all follow her in all the places. Follow the podcast. I'm a subscriber.
Yay,
Please,
thank
I'm
please
doing
you.
it
go and
right
do
now.
those things. All right, so here we go. Something you've learned in the past year, whether a life lesson, hobby, or fun fact.
Ooh, life lesson. Not all skin folk are kinfolk.
Woo! Ooh, yes, that's a good one. I'm seeing that
Yes.
being rotated a lot more now, and I think that's very common of the times considering everything that's happening in the world right now. So
Yeah. Yep.
I'm for
Look
this.
closer. Yep.
Yes. All right, favorite vacation or getaway spot?
Ooh, Bali, Indonesia.
Oh my gosh, I would love to go. Oh
Yes,
man, that sounds
yes.
so amazing.
It's
Okay.
amazing.
Sweet snacks or savory snacks?
Ooh, savory at this point in my life. Savory. Yes. Yes.
I love it. Okay, Harry Potter or Star Wars?
Ooh, Harry Potter. I think I am. What house am I? I am House Gryffindor. There was this picture going around about HBCUs
Yes.
at Hogwarts. If Hogwarts was an HBCU, yes, and I'm House Gryffindor.
Okay, I'm Ravenclaw.
Okay.
So we're kind of right next to each other.
Yes.
Okay, digital books or physical books?
Oh man, the kids have ruined physical books for me. It's all digital. It's all digital. And
I feel like
My,
it's so common with kids.
my daughter's like, Mom, what am I listening to? You're still here? No, so but definitely audiobooks.
Oh, I love it. Okay, if you could go back in time, where would you go and whom would you see?
Ooh, if I could go back in time, whew, I'd probably like to help Harriet Tubman on the Underground Railroad, just because that's the fire that's in my belly right now. So
Woo!
so yeah, so we'd have been running in some swamps. Like my nonprofit is called North Star. North
Yes,
Star.
of course.
So
Yes.
so yes, definitely in line with where I am.
I love this so much. Okay, so I'll be real honest. You are the second person who has ever said Harriet Tubman in this answer.
Yes.
We had one from our first season, Tony Forte, who mentioned this as Harriet Tubman as well. I was like, y'all got some fire. I'm
Oh,
feeling this.
yeah,
I
yeah.
love that. Okay, so your love language. Do you know your
Hmm.
love language?
Quality time.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. I can
yeah.
totally see that. Yes.
Yeah, it's definitely changed in the type. Like, before kids, it was actually spending time with people.
Mhm.
Now it's that digital stuff. It's a text, it's an email, it's, a like on Facebook. It's the Facebook conversations or Instagram. So it's totally like, are you in my orbit? Are you engaging with me? And not so much,
I love that.
yeah, spending the time
I
physical.
love it.
Yeah.
Okay, last question is best part of growing up.
Best part of growing up, I would say, huh. Oh man. So there was a period in my life where I was still married, but I was separated and that I was living in a different state. And so when you date somebody at an early age and you get the opportunity to still be married, but still be kind of single, it's great. And the single stuff that I did was really like going to happy hour bars with my sister, who, I lived in Pennsylvania at the time and I had a job that traveled me to New York City, my hometown. And
All right.
so I got to hang out with my sister as an adult in New York, not having to pay rent. So she worked a few blocks from my hotel. So we would do happy hour, and it was just so much fun, like to experience your city as an adult, and as an adult who didn't always have to pay, for dinner, for,
Right.
roof over your head. I was on per diem. So,
Oh
I
my
was I
goodness.
was living high, and I got to enjoy my sister in that particular way. And so it's a time in my life I'm totally glad that I did.
Oh my goodness. Those are all great. Okay, obviously you passed with flying colors. Shut up. I just love the fact that I got to know you just a little bit more. And I'm hoping that the women who are listening to this message feel a little bit more connected with their inner selves and give a little bit more fire to what they could give their voice to. And I'm
Yes.
really thankful for you, Aisha, for being able to share your story, your compassion, your fire, and be also so transparent in your story and sharing that with us today. So thank you.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity. It's been great.